Good evening, campers, it's me, Kira. Today we are going to talk about really a seminal work of science fiction, a seminal work of contemporary science fiction that really did change the game for the landscape, and that is Cixin Liu's The Three-Body Problem. Cixin Liu's 2008 work was translated in 2014 by Ken Liu. In fact, Cixin Liu is called Da Liu, Big Liu, and Ken Liu has the nickname in China Zhao Liu, which means Little Liu, which I quite enjoy. His translation has been lauded, so much so that Cixin Liu actually has said that if you are a Chinese speaker who also speaks English, don't read his work, read the English translation. And I think that's worth mentioning, and it's also worth mentioning the context to why Cixin Liu feels as though the translation is apt. And that is because the first scenes that happen within the three-body problem in the original occur in the middle. It's the Cultural Revolution of China. Luckily for me, in my review of Ninth Building, I spoke about the Cultural Revolution, and I'm just going to stick what I said there right here. The Cultural Revolution, which lasted a decade, was to, in a nutshell, remove bourgeois, capitalistic and traditional elements from Chinese society. The Cultural Revolution, to how it could be argued, was to ensure that China was to give power back to the proletariat and to ensure that China was not to rescind back to its previous ways. However, any idea that Mao seemingly had ultimately resorted to violence and the descent into chaos. Let's have a look at Mao Zedong's track record. Prior to the Cultural Revolution, we had Mao's idea of the Great Leap Forward. 5-year plans that were meant to industrialise and modernise through the reconstitution of land and the reconstruction of the agrarian economy, which fed the people. Mao decided to over-exaggerate what he was going to do, leading to non-existent surpluses of food being collected. This non-existent surplus was somehow meant to feed the existent people of China, which ultimately led to the Great Chinese Famine of 59 to 61, which is argued to be the second, if not the worst famine in all of human history. One of the monumental histories of China is the Cixi, which is the record of the Grand Historian. It states, Mian Yi Shi Wei Tan, food is the priority of the people. It is a basic rule, it is a fundamental rule, and ultimately it can be the rule to your downfall as leader. Mao knew this and therefore decided to pen within the Little Red Book the propagandist text that would fuel the Cultural Revolution. He wrote that people should bombard the headquarters and to rebel is justified. Mao didn't take personal responsibility. Instead decided to shift the blame to the bourgeois, the capitalists, and got people to rebel. He got people to turn on their own kin. Thank you, past me, for putting in all that work. Wait, a Chinese author writing in China, criticising the Chinese government? Some people are going to think, oh no, we have another Mo Yan on our hands. But it's worth knowing that the Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping openly allow criticism of the Cultural Revolution. They themselves criticise it. And I think the same was true with Xi's predecessor, Deng Xiaoping. Therefore, Cixin Liu's criticism of the Cultural Revolution isn't as nail-biting as some people would like to make out on the internet. In fact, Cixin Liu is celebrated in China. He is one of their biggest exports. Cixin Liu, in order to be writing science fiction, is actually quite interesting because when he first got into that genre, he was living under the Cultural Revolution, and to be reading those Western titles would have been punishable. Cixin Liu's passion has come from a dark history, and within the three-body problem, there is a dark history that is going to happen to humankind. Because under the background of the Cultural Revolution, we have contacted aliens, and they are going to come for our planet. Yi Wenji sees her father being beat up by those who are working under the Red Army, and this leads to a number of events where she ends up working with two scientists, Yang Weining and Li Zhishang, to work on a secret satellite mission, sending messages up into space. In the vast expanse, you never really think that anything is going to come back, but Yi gets a message from a Trisolarian who is a pacifist. This Trisolarian advises not to respond, do not send any more messages back, do not continue what you are doing. But because this is the first book in a trilogy, you know they're going to. While this is going on, alongside many other plot points that are a little bit too fetid for my liking, we always seem to ricochet back to Wang Miao, a nanotechnology professor who becomes embroiled within the game Three Body. Before I carry on, this is hard science fiction, which means a lot of the information, a lot of the technology and the cutting edge science that Cixin Liu is talking about is almost info dumped at you within these short chapters, and I'm not entirely sure I understand what is going on. Or someone says, oh, you didn't read it closely enough. Well, you can explain to me how you take a proton, map it onto the second dimension, and how the problem of having that in the world's orbit because it would curve, and then in order to map it with nano pico technology to make a supercomputer, then escalate it through to the sixth dimension where it just ends up being the size of a ball. If you could explain how that works, that would be great. The three-body game, from what I could garner, where the player is introduced to a civilization where they meet, based on our history, prominent figures, be that scientific or philosophical, and they're trying to deduce the three-body problem. The three-body problem, in a nutshell, is that when you have celestial bodies, you can understand the orbit and trajectory of two bodies. So in regards to like the Earth and the Moon, we understand how that orbit works. However, if you bring a third body into play, TLDR, it gets really chaotic and you can't really work it out. So through these various levels, which always end in catastrophic destruction because of this third body ultimately burning the entire Earth to the ground, Wang discovers a solution. This is where I start to lose the thread of this book. The game is either a replica of Trisolaris, and the aliens have manufactured this game in order to deduce what is currently happening over there, even though the Trisolarians have way more technology. Remember about the proton? Yeah. This book at times forced my hands into my head going, I don't know what is going on. Although this is a lauded and approved translation by the original author, this book is clunky, its narrative is all over the place, to the point where I kind of forgot there were aliens present, because everyone's very similar. Are the Trisolarians vaguely human? Like, I don't think that was clarified in any way, shape or form. But then you have the floating eyes from the Trisolarians. I was lost. To the point where I'm unsure if the second book, The Dark Forest, which is to provide a solution to the Fermi paradox of is there life out there, I don't know if it will expound or expand on the gaps in my understanding of this, or if it's meant to be confusing. Was I captivated by this in the same sense of when I watch a number file video where the maths that is being discussed is really just going over my head, but I'm vaguely following along, but there's just so much cutting edge theories that Cixin Liu has implemented in this that I really just couldn't follow the thread of what was happening, why it was happening, whilst being really heavily fed, but this is what I'm doing. I was very much intrigued by the Cultural Revolution aspect, and I actually found out that one of the authors whose work I picked this up on a whim. It's Lao Shi's Mr. Ma and Son. I found out that he committed suicide because he was worried about what was going to happen to him being an intellectual. The cultural and historical background to this, I can't deny, had me completely captivated, but the more the science really ratchets up, I couldn't follow it. And for the amount of people who were like, you need to read this is incredible, makes me think, like, are they fully understanding what is going on here? I think, and I'm saying this after the first book and I've not finished the trilogy, but I think this is overhyped. I think people have really put this on a pedestal, and I'm not entirely sure why. It very much reminded me of Asimov's work, which at sometimes can just reach this point of Asimov, like, good for you, you know what's going on, I don't entirely no. And in fact, one of Asimov's short stories, The Billiard Room, turns up into this as an explanation to what Cixin Liu is then going to further. I'm going to give the three-body problem a 3, because I think that's quite poetic, but this was just a workout. Let me know if I should read the second one, because it's actually good, or if you would just like me to ramble like an idiot, being like, I don't understand what's going on. Either will suit. Ardent fans of Chinese author Cixin Liu really like to get on their knees and fillet this entire series, which is a little bit ironic because this entire book is just elongated foreplay. I feel as though it's more likely for me to pull a tapeworm out of my arse than anything positive to say. The amount of baiting and switching that Cixin Liu does throughout this is like abhorrently grating. The Dark Forest has solidified to me that Cixin Liu is more focused about the big ideas than actually storytelling. I don't think it's helped by the second book having a different change in structure. Within the first book you had short chapters, so any info dumping or plot continuation was almost contained. God knows what this third book's going to be like. I haven't even opened it. But the second book, everything's in part, which means that there's just this elongation of Cixin Liu just continuing on and on and on and on. But these ideas are so big, they're so complex, that I feel as though for the Dark Forest we spend more time in amongst the weeds. I have no idea how the Trisolarians and the Sophons, I don't understand how is this alien race so like almost like primitive, but they have these Sophons that can like read minds and they spy on people on Earth. Don't get me started on the wall breakers and the wall faces. That was ridiculous. I didn't even want to get my head around Netrunner, that card game, and it's basically there. But this is the other thing. Cixin Liu really gets the reader, I personally feel, on the back foot because he's so invested in ideas that he's almost using theories, ideas and conjectures not to progress a story but to make the story happen. You couldn't even see like the through line for half of it, or you do the we'll just freeze your wife and now you have to be 200 years in the future. Sorry about that. Worst Futurama redo ever. Frustrated, and it's not even helped that all the characters, they're all the same. Again, I said this in the first book. I didn't identify that the Trisolarians were alien. I thought they were just human, and everyone here is the exact same. I couldn't tell you any like distinguishing features apart from Liu Cixin forgets people's names until they're absolutely killed. I don't understand. How do you take these innovative, winding, complex ideas and just plateau and just make everything so flat that it's just like, it's pulling teeth. I'm aware that there's going to be someone who's going to pull out the gotcha card. Clearly they must do because they read this. But I'm going to be like, you're not smart enough to understand this. I promise you, maybe I'm not. But like, I cannot fathom my head around any of it, even in regards to the Dark Forest itself. Liu Ci's answer to the Fermi paradox. Is there life out there? Are we the only ones? Which basically, I don't even understand the statistics of how it's even working. What? To increase your odds, you just have to kill everyone? I'm not sure. And we know there's life. We know about the Trisolarians. Like, what are we doing? I don't understand any of this. I hated this book. It's elongated. It's gratuitous. It's a little bit of an exercise. I think it's usually just wanting to talk about things, trying to put a story together, trying to create characters, but they all serve just for him as like a mouthpiece to talk about these ideas, which is just like an infuriating. Just tell me what your theories are. Like, I don't need 500 pages of description, of prose, of plot that does nothing but to just serve a Cixin Liu be like, hey, isn't this interesting? It's just like, it's just the worst. It's the worst. And maybe I don't like big idea science fiction. I don't like hard science fiction. Maybe that's what I've deduced from all of it. But this is, what are people enjoying about this? I can't even tell you. Like, I thought that, like, Liu Cixin, in regards to, like, while he's part of the wall faces, I thought it was going to be this, like, parallel between the Cultural Revolution that we had before, that he's paranoid, that he's going to be, like, he's branded as counter-revolutionary, but he's chosen for the role, but everything he does, people are like, that's a little bit suspicious. I'm like, but you chose him! But then, again, he has no agency. We don't understand his motives, we don't even understand his drives. I don't think he understands his drives. So, any form of, like, empathy, or, like, I wasn't expecting that. You just don't expect it because you just don't know anything about Liu Cixin, and I don't know what I'm meant to get from any of this apart from boom boom, spaceship goes blast, what, there's aliens, I wonder if there's life out there. But we already know that. What the fuck is this series? I'll finish it, I'll read the third one. I have no context. I don't understand all the praise. I don't understand all the accolades. I am lost. It is just boring. It is trite. It is I read it. I'm lost. Oh my god, what am I doing? I generally feel as though I'm going to be at my wit's end by death's end. Jeez, I'm so glad this series is over. Today I'm going to be talking about Death's End by Cixin Liu. Holy Moses split the Red Sea. Death's End is the end. It's the goddamn end of the 3 body problem series, which I've basically hated from beginning to end. Look, Cixin Liu, I know that you had to introduce a 4D element, but you do really have to take all the characters down a dimension. 2D, flat, boring. If I was the sword holder of this, I would have banned the entire book series. I don't know how we could take like 18 million years over light years and make it just one long lecture of a really high-end scientific physics. How do you get a room? How do you get a room that stops that certain protons get through? I don't know. He just wangs on. He's like, oh, let me tell you about this, let me tell you about this, let me tell you about this, let me tell you about this. And you're just there going, I need a breath, Cixin Liu. And then you go like message in a bottle by the police by the end, by doing like a big bang, which is like the reverse of the Big Bang, so you have to wait for the death of the universe. Basically, humanity's screwed. That's all. You could have told me that in book 1. I could have guessed that by book 1. Look, we're all screwed. If the aliens come over, everyone will die. The universe will begin again. Bing, bam, boom. It was 700 pages. It's 700 pages, this. Senjin, what an absolute nothing character. You know what? Most of this book is nothing. It's just Cixin Liu again. I've said this throughout. It's just a mouthpiece for him to talk about very interesting, high intellectual theories and then trying to put them into practice. And it is just, everyone is just like, everything happens in order for him to go, yes, but let me tell you about this. And then, again, you can't really see the story. I said this in the Dark Forest. I'm really sorry about this. This is the regurgitation. You can't see the story, especially as this, like, jumps from era to era to era to era to era to era. And you're just there going, what am I meant to get from this? And it's basically, we're screwed. We're a waste.